Yay, Sherry saved the day. Sherry and
Hi.
Cherie.
We're live.
All right, we're ready to go, Lisa. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. It is 5:35 p.m. on Tuesday, April 5th, and I now call to order the City of College Place City Council Workshop. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Jessup,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Espinosa,
Present.
Councilmember Sherman,
Present.
Councilmember Boyle,
Present.
Mayor Hernandez, of course, is here. Councilmember Williams requested to be excused. We also have City Attorney Ree Colwell, Finance Director Brian Carlton, Deputy Finance Director Deshree Schmick, Public Works Director Robert McAndrews, Fire Chief David Winter, HR Manager Sean Doring, Deputy City Clerk Sherry St. Clair, myself, City Neisel, and our Police Chief Troy Tamaris, along with several others who will be swearing in a new officer.
All right,
We do-
fabulous. All right, will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. It is now time for public comment. Lisa, did anyone submit a comment, or would anybody attending like to speak at this time?
Nobody has submitted a comment. We do not have any public in attendance at the moment on the Zoom link.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to presentations. It's time for the swearing in of our new College Place Police Officer, Josh Jackson, and Chief Tamaris is going to have the honors.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We very much appreciate being here tonight. This is a very exciting evening for us. We get to swear in a new officer, Officer Josh Jackson. So we'll go ahead and get going. Josh, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Joshua Jackson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties of my office
discharge the duties of my office
as prescribed by law
as prescribed by law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Will support the Constitution
Will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state of Washington
of the state of Washington
and ordinances
and the ordinances
of the city of College Place
of the city of College Place
as a peace officer,
as a peace officer,
to which position I have been appointed.
to which position I have been appointed.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. And the floor is yours.
Mayor, council members, chief, teammates, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to be part of the team at College Place, and it's good to be on the right side of the mountains. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Thanks very much.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome, Officer Jackson.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to workshop topics. The first one is the feasibility study to evaluate regional wastewater treatment alternatives. And Mr. McAndrews is going to present.
Yeah. Good afternoon, evening, council and mayor. Yeah, so a little history here. As I think probably most of you know, our current ecology permit requires that we have to make significant improvements to our wastewater treatment plant by the end of 2023. A big part of that is that we're not allowed to discharge any effluent to Garrison Creek between May and October. So the phase one improvements that are required are expected to cost about $26 million. Ecology's generously offered us a $5 million grant and about $21 million of low interest loan. But regardless, that'll be a significant burden to the ratepayers, that we'd expect upwards of a 20% increase in rates to be able to take on that loan. So, and then additionally, ecology we're expecting that at some point down the road, there'll be future phases of this of improvements required that could be upwards of $50 million additional improvements. So, and then City of Walla Walla is also facing some significant improvements that it sounds like are similar cost to them. So there's a lot of money that will need to be invested in treatment plants in the area. So we sat down with state legislators and the Port of Walla Walla and the City of Walla Walla and our engineering consultants and started discussing the validity of doing a regional solution. So through that, we determined that a feasibility study needed to be put in place or conducted to determine if it's feasible at all to have one regional plant, whether it's ours or theirs, or potentially something entirely different. But and so yeah, JUB Engineers has been working with both us and the City of Walla Walla. They're familiar with both of our plants and all the issues and requirements. And so they put together a scope and fee to do a feasibility study for us. The cost would be $100,000. Of that, 50% of it would be forgivable loan that was previously accepted by Department of Ecology. And then the other 50% would be shared 3 ways between the Port of Walla Walla, City of Walla Walla, and City College Place. So that'd be, 16.6% each. So through that feasibility study, JUB would evaluate the continued use of the influence screens and our SBRs at the wastewater treatment plant for daytime storage, and then nighttime kind of off-peak hours, pumping that up to the City of Walla Walla's treatment plant. They'd also be looking at what impacts that would have for the City of Walla Walla's treatment plant, alternatives for the port's kind of high use industrial users, and then they prepare probable cost estimates and for the proposed projects, and also summarize potential issues that we might have with various projects or proposals, and then with regionalizing in general. So it's kind of on the fast track. JUB said they will have this done within 5 months of the agreement being accepted or executing contract, which is important because all the parties need that information so that we can make sound decisions before December, when we have to commit to accepting the ecology grant and loan. So it's kind of on the fast track to figure out if there's an alternative, but it's also important to note that even with the regionalization, we expect probably about $6 million of improvements that we'd have to make to our plant. And that would be regardless if we move forward with the big project, or if it was going to be, or I shouldn't say the big project, with the full improvements at our plant, versus potentially, pumping our effluent to off-site. It still needs some improvements to the SBRs and the influent. But yeah, so ultimately the goal is that all 3 parties are working toward coming to some sort of agreement and likely creating a wastewater district that would include all the users. So I guess it's open for discussion or questions.
All right. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for questions. Councilmember Jessup.
Thanks. Not at the moment, but maybe perhaps later.
Sure.
Councilmember Cleveland.
I don't think I have any specific questions, just, I guess, one concern I have is if we shift our wastewater treatment over to a regional facility, we kind of lose a couple, at least potentially lose a couple options for like reclaiming that water and say treating it, pumping it down. I think we recently all got an email regarding concerns about the aquifer being depleted at about, such and such a rate a year. And I guess if we did move forward on a regional facility, I'd want to especially keep an eye out for options to try to have more of a renewable resource when it comes to our water supply. That's the only comment I have.
Sure.
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Yeah, quick question. So if I understand it right, we have two options. Option number one is to, for College Place to do the wastewater plant on our own, or the second one is to do it with Walla Walla. Is that right?
Potentially. So what this is this is our JUB, who's our engineering firm, putting together a feasibility study. So they will list out all the pros and cons. They'll lay out potential costs, what they're estimating things would cost if it is doable, and then kind of lay out some sort of a rough plan so that at that point, roughly 5 or 6 months from now, everybody, both the city of Walla Walla, the port of Walla Walla, and the city of College Place will all be able to look at this potential option and pros and cons and say, does this regional treatment plant make sense? And if so, do we start working towards that instead of us doing these more major upgrades to our existing plant? So really, this is just a feasibility study to determine if that's even an option.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. No further questions.
Councilmember Sherman.
I don't have questions either. I'm looking forward to seeing what this says because that does seem like a very hefty number. So yeah, thanks, Robert.
Yeah.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Robert, I do have a question. The cost, $75,000, is that going to be shared amongst the 3 organizations, the cities or participants, or is it just our cost?
Where'd you get 75,000? So the whole
Page
studies-
8.
What's that?
Page 8 of the regionalization resolution draft. Right there, the last page.
Sorry, I'm not. So it should be.
Oh, you opened the wrong one, Lisa. The other one.
I don't know if I have that document. It should be $100,000 total, and so 50% of that is a forgivable loan. So if I understand correctly, the Department of Ecology will write that loan off, so that money would nobody be on the hook for that. So then okay, it's the actual feasibility study.
Yes.
But the whole project is with JUB, so we have to pay for their meeting time and their quality control and project management for the whole thing. So what's split is the 100,000, but 50% of that, so $50,000 is forgivable. So the other 50,000 is then split 3 ways. So it'd be essentially $16,600 per city and port.
Okay.
Does that make
Perfect.
sense? Does that answer your question?
Yep, absolutely. That's exactly what I needed to know. All right. Do we have any other questions for Mr. McAndrews at this time? All right. Thank you, Robert.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. All right, let's see next. We have the Parks Worker 3 position, and Ms. Doing's going to present on that.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. I'm here tonight. We recently had a parks worker position come open as one of our employees left. And so in reviewing the job descriptions and preparing to fill the position, we decided that it might be a good idea to create a Parks Worker 3 position that would add a few more requirements to the job. One of which is a pesticide license, and then the other one is 2 years of experience required. We did make some updates to the Parks Worker 2 position, mostly just language updates, who the person reports to, because we hired an operations manager in 2020. The Parks Worker 3 position is not currently on our salary ordinance, so we would have to add that. It would just give us some flexibility when we're looking to fill that position. It seems like our park system is growing, and we need somebody capable of taking care of all the tasks that need to be done. So I would be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Right. Mr. Jessup?
Thank you so much. Obviously our parks are growing and that kind of stuff, so it's awesome. Did I read correctly that this is not an added position, it's just replacing it?
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we just want to have a little bit more flexibility when we're looking for somebody so that we can choose, either the Parks Worker 2 position or the Parks Worker 3 based upon their qualifications.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, that's appreciate it.
Mr. Cleveland?
No questions.
Mr. Peterson?
No questions to comment. Yeah, I support this. Sounds like a good idea. Thank you.
Mr. Espinosa?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman?
No question. Thank you.
And Ms. Boyle?
No questions. Great idea.
All right, Sean, that was easy.
It was easy. Thank you all. I'll be back once I've had a chance to discuss it with the union and finalize it there, and then we'll go ahead and bring it back for approval to add to the salary ordinance.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we're going to put Mr. Carlton in the hot seat. First, we're going to talk about the ERP system replacement.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just bring up my presentation. Oh. Oh, sorry. Oh, no. Just bear with me a second, please. I have to find that presentation again. Well, I'll just go with it like it is. Can everyone see that?
No.
Oh, I think I stopped the share screen. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah, slideshow. If you go from beginning, there you go.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So a little bit of background here. Last year, we were informed by our current financial system bias that they were bought out by Springbrook Systems. And we're coming to the end of the life of our current system, and we have to upgrade either to the cloud version of our current system, upgrade to a newer version of what they offer, or look at alternatives. We put together a team of groups from all the applicable departments to go through the process and determine and make a recommendation of what direction we should go with our ERP systems. One of the main focuses we were looking at was to have a system that was combined, that would entail all departments and all the separate components we have. Currently, I think we're operating about 7 or 8 different systems that all sort of interrelate or don't interrelate. And as you recall, last year we had significant problems with the community development portal with iWork that was a failure. And we're looking at a system to not only replace that, but replace our entire system. In 2021, we assembled a team.
Brian,
Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you changing slides? Because we're
I
not
hadn't
seeing
yet.
it. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Sorry.
So for those of you that don't know what ERP systems are, that's our enterprise resource planning software. It's all the applications from finance, human resources, handles our jobs, ERP vendors. They have expanded in applications such as supply chain management, current relations management, and industry verticals. Characteristics of an ERP system. That includes our business management software, human resources. It enables high levels of integration across business functions and units, provides for widespread sharing of data from one information repository. And that's really important for us because currently in our Springbrook platform, it's the reporting is very difficult and we spend a lot of time manipulating spreadsheets and trying to get the information out the way we want it. Also, an additional characteristic, drives extensive business transformation and change management efforts and requires a high level of implementation effort and support. Here are some of the current systems we're dealing with. The big ones, Springbrook is the majority of our systems. We are intending on definitely developing community development. That was one of the key drivers in this project, was to get a program for community development that could be used to interact more online with the general public as far as doing reviews, getting permits and etc., all doing it online. Currently, we don't have any of those features. Document Locator is our online system for filing documents. We have Asset Management we're still using with iWork, although we're looking at replacing that. NeoGov is our HR system, and Express Online Bill Pay, and Questica for budgeting. If we look at the total cost of those items, we're in the ballpark of around $60,000 a year in maintenance fees on the total of all those. Some of the benefits of the implementation, we're looking at streamlining or eliminating inefficient processes, eliminate desperate standalone systems, provide integrated enterprise-wide common tools, processes, and systems, establish a backbone structure that can be leveraged to handle all operational processes, integrates and increases control of budgeting, planning, and financial management, provides enterprise-wide reporting and decision support, presents opportunity to level vendors' future investment and enhance functionality, and incorporates new functionality and technology. You know, citizen online access for community development is definitely a driver in that area. Some of the things we had to consider when we were looking at these different ERP vendors, if they have successful government ERP implementation track record, establish relationships and implementation practices with major government ERP software, a full range of ERP implementation skills from software selection to post-production support, use of structured ERP implementation methodology and project management tools and techniques, and our ability to address unique government environment here, especially with the cash basis bars. Some of the reasons for a change, current softwares are not integrated. A good example is our Questica budgeting will not integrate with Springbrook. Springbrook does not currently have a custom reporting tool, although they have one on the docket they've been trying to develop for the last couple of years, but it's still not available for use. And regardless, we would have to upgrade to their cloud version of our current platform in order to get that feature. Springbrook does not allow data input from third-party software. Again, Questica budget's a good example. And therefore, we have to re-enter documents into accounts payable between document locator for attaching electronic forms. Springbrook does not easily allow for setup changes and customization. As well, Springbrook will discontinue premise installations in the near future. That meaning our software for Springbrook is installed in our servers here. All the programs we're looking for in the future of these ERP systems is to go to the cloud-based. And all the systems that we are looking at are cloud-based systems. The current community development software is antiquated, does not offer any workflow or online processes. Currently, we don't have a contract grant tracking software. Payroll and HR are not integrated, therefore we utilize NeoGov third-party software. And we want to utilize a fully integrated system, thereby eliminating individual licensing costs. So we went out and found vendors that currently supply ERP systems to our level of government. And we came up with the ones listed here: Tyler Tech, OpenGov, Springbrook Cirrus, which is the higher level version of what we're currently at, and then the cloud version of our current system. There was 4 individuals in the group that did the rating, and these are the summations of the ratings that we gave the individual vendors based on the 7 criteria listed. Functionality and ease of use. You can see the different components there. Vendor viability, have they been in the market? Is it scalable? Technology, is the product customizable? Can it be integrated? Does it meet our needs for the city? And is it being updated regularly? Cost, of course, cost is a big component. And we did do a split between deployment and yearly subscription fees. Like I said, we're currently budgeted to expense probably around $60,000 in licensing fees on the current systems that would be eliminated. But yeah, we put in the capital budget $100,000 for implementation. And I'll give you a summary of the cost in the next page. We also looked at how their support and training compared, as well as do they have industry expertise. Tyler Tech has been in the market in this Washington state for a long time. OpenGov is trying to move into this area. That gives them a little bit of a disadvantage because they are not familiar with cash basis bars, which Tyler Tech is. The Cirrus product is good, but we didn't rate it quite as high. And the old system of Springbrook, which is currently what we have, but in the cloud-based version, we know what we have and what we get out of it. So that's it in that area. And then we also looked at what our associated cities around us use, and definitely regional consistency and community development was important. We compared that to Walla Walla and Tri-Cities, which Walla Walla is currently implementing Tyler Tech. I believe, I can't remember which city in Tri-Cities, but I think Richland is implementing Tyler Tech, and that gave that definitely a higher score. Since we deal with a lot of contractors, subcontractors from Tri-Cities, using one system, having the same, not the same, but the same looking interface, we feel is definitely an advantage. Here are the costs. Oh, and I sorry, the summary it didn't print off at the bottom, but definitely Tyler Tech came in as our #1 recommended based on this criteria. Here are the systems costs. Deployment is, of course, their estimate of how much it's going to cost to get us set up and running. Tyler Tech, just under 165,000. OpenGov, 300,000. The Springbrook Cirrus, 150. And the current, definitely staying with the current version of Springbrook would, there's a slight fee for upgrading to the cloud-based version. Here are the yearly subscription fees we'd have to pay. Under Tyler Tech, it's just under $60,000. OpenGov at 130. Cirrus, Springbrook Cirrus at 63. And the current version of Springbrook, that 90,000, that includes the $60,000 in additional costs, plus the fees of the licensing fees for the cloud-based Springbrook product. So you can see on a cost basis, definitely Tyler Tech comes in at the lower on a recurring basis. What we didn't know at the time we did budgeting last year is that, of course, we knew about the deployment and we put $100,000 in the budget. Definitely the estimates given from the software company is exceeding that amount. Tyler Tech at 224,000. That's would be spread out probably over the next year and a half. We didn't anticipate, they're taking a lot longer to implement their community development, and that wouldn't be until probably second quarter of 2023. The rest of the financials and HR payroll can be ready by January 1st, 2023. OpenGov, considerably more expensive on an implementation at 430,000. And Springbrook, Cirrus, a little less than Tyler Tech. And Springbrook is that cost ongoing. There's not really much for implementation. And those costs are one time, don't forget. And here's the systems that we would intend on eliminating going to Tyler Tech. So the next steps are we want to bring this back to council on April 12th for approval to move forward. Once we've done that, we'll contract with the selected vendor, which our recommendation will be Tyler Tech. We'll develop an implementation plan with hopefully going live January 1st, 2023 with core financials, and then following up April 1 for community development. Questions?
All right, let's go for questions. Mr. Jessup.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation and the numbers. I had a couple of quick clarification questions, if you don't mind. So in your comparison chart, I was kind of thinking through how much more you guys were wanting. So I assumed you said there's 4 people. I imagine 1 through 10 rating, and then you added that type of thing. Just kind of seeing where those numbers come from. What's 35 mean out of 30 and that kind of thing?
Oh, that's geez.
Yeah, I believe it was 1 out of 10 with 4 different raters.
Yeah, and you guys all just added them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of seeing how much you guys wanted one or the other. My second question is do you guys happen to know no one's perfect, but do you guys happen to know kind of their track record in terms of their safety and their firewalls and such? Just if you're streamlining everything, all documents into kind of one system, I didn't know if there's a track record on that or not.
Well, they're all cloud-based systems, and that's actually a good question. I would assume their security protocol is pretty advanced for, these are all like larger government entity software. companies, so.
I didn't know if like,
I'd have to formally ask that question about how each of them handle security.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to me like, especially with cloud-based, I'm not a Luddite by any stretch. Like I appreciate the new technologies, just wondering if they've been around a while, what that would be in their safety protocols and their record. So thanks. That's it for me.
Mr. Cleveland?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I guess I was just wondering if are these like kind of our only options, these three companies, or are there kind of others that might be available if, say, we had a problem with Tyler Tech? We could particularly find other vendors that could provide similar services, or these kind of it.
I think there's one other one that Mike used to use in one of his other jobs, but it's not an option for us. They're not advanced. They're not even as advanced as our current Springbrook system. Other than that, there's probably other ones, but the price goes up.
Okay.
They're bigger, more expensive.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Peterson?
Hey, Brian, thank you for the comprehensive review. It's kind of the look and feel when you get in there and how you guys like it, and I support your outcome here. I especially liked that there are local governments that are using it. I know, just even the look and feel when other people, contractors and whatnot. But it's also one of those things, if you're looking to replace positions in the future or whatnot, the commonality of understanding those systems is valued. So anyway, thanks again, Brian.
Okay.
Mr. Espinosa?
Yeah, Brian, a couple of questions. Number one, did you guys look at Oracle or SAP as ERP options?
No.
I looked at Oracle in the very beginning, and it was quite a bit more expensive even than OpenGov, just from the initial demo that I got. And they also aren't, Washington is very specific with their BARS system, so their budgeting and reporting system, and it didn't really seem like they could handle a small city cash basis like we are.
How about SAP?
I did not look at SAP personally, no.
My experience with SAP and some other companies I've been in is very expensive.
Got it. Okay. And the second question is, when we look at cost savings, and I think that the reason why you're promoting this move is for efficiency, if I understand it correctly, so that all the systems can integrate, they can speak to one another.
Exactly.
The yearly Pardon me?
I said exactly.
Oh, thank you. So the yearly subscription of Tyler Tech is, $59,000 versus what you're paying now, which is $60,000. So there will only be a savings of about $500 per month.
That's per year.
Per year after year one with the implementation, correct?
Yeah, it's pretty much a wash when you look at it.
Okay.
But we will be forced to go to the Springbrook cloud version at some point. They're going to stop supporting the system that we currently have. So then that cost definitely goes up.
Okay.
Because we have to maintain those other current systems some level.
Have you factored in what you think the cost savings will be of having an integrated solution versus having the current setup as you have now? Do you think that will yield greater savings over the long term in terms of efficiency?
We did not look at that. Our intention was not to eliminate any staff. So in just maybe having to work less. If you're a salaried person, I know that doesn't really save any money, but it saves people. We did not look at that function to see how much we were going to save. But there, you know, realistically, there will be savings involved. You know, for community development, it's more just getting online and be able to work with our citizens more easily. And since we're both Walla Walla and Tri-Cities are moving in this direction, I think we also need to move in that direction.
All
You
right.
know, somewhat going paperless. So a lot of people say.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Sherman?
I have questions about onboarding and what is that process like with Tyler Tech? Are they, do they handle it? Do you guys do testing? How does that look as far as doing that at the end of the year when we're also doing budget?
They have a whole team that'll work with us in getting it set up. I imagine there'll be a lot of responsibility from certain people within the departments that will have to be involved with the setup. But yeah, they have a team they put together to help us deploy.
How many?
And I don't have a schedule for that yet because they don't really work that plan up with you until you sign the contract.
Are they like, I feel like maybe this was in that grid, but maybe not specifically. How many cities do they have as clients?
Within Washington State?
Sure.
I do not have that number.
Okay.
They've given us some references for Washington State, and they work with implementing from Springbrook quite often. So they're very familiar with Springbrook. They made it seem like the process would be very simple for them. I assume that there would definitely be testing. I think that they had mentioned that there would be a time period where we would have both systems up and running just to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be cool if there was a way to find out people who who are using their software that aren't on their reference list. We're going through that right now, obviously nothing with public record, thank goodness, but it's an interesting thing to go through, and everybody does great. The company that we're going through to is awesome. And so I'm hoping, it seems like Tyler Tech will be that, and just wanting to make sure that it is that way before getting too far. But
John did get some feedback on the community development side that it's taking longer to set up than what they had originally planned, but the end product is fantastic.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds really good. I think that in addition to whatever cost savings, I think that personnel savings, as far as not having to go do things multiple times, will be a great step for us. So thank you both for doing all of this work.
Yeah, and also when we did the original demos of the products, definitely Tyler Tech from the financial side came through a lot stronger and a lot more integrated than the other systems.
Great. Thank you.
And that resulted in the higher scoring.
Is Tyler Tech cloud-based?
Yes, they all are.
Okay, I thought so. I was hoping that I had just somehow missed that. I think that this is great. I always see value in investing in upgraded systems like this, that the working smarter, not harder idea. And I think that as technology races forward, you can't lose when you're investing in upgrading your systems this way. So I think this is just smart.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Carlton on this topic? All right. Okay. It looks like we're good on this topic. And I'm going to go a little bit off agenda because before we go to the next item, because who knows what kind of mood we're going to be in after that discussion. I want us to recognize our Daisry Schmick, who made the 39 under 39 of community leaders, along with our city administrator, Michael Rizzatello, but he's not here. So I applaud her and congratulations on making the city so very proud, Daisry.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to recognize me. It was yeah, it was an honor to be recognized and to represent the city of College Place.
Well, thank you. All right, so now let's move on to the ambulance utility rates discussion, and Mr. Carlton is going to present on this one. And I think Chief Winter might contribute if there's questions or concerns.
Everybody still see that?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Another kick at the cat. So
That
at the
must be a
last,
Canadian reference because I've never heard that.
no?
No.
Maybe I'll start using it, right? So at the last meeting, I wasn't able to attend. I was on vacation. And at the end of that meeting, I guess there was a discussion that transpired about the different options for the utility. Mike sent me a list of the items that you guys wanted to see as a result of that discussion. And before you, I present those different options. I'll go through each one in somewhat detail to let you know how it was calculated and the impact. The first one is actually the calculation that's driven from the RCW with the state that say you must do a calculation based on demand and availability. So the demand is, we looked at a time study of the activity in 2021, and we came up with a split of, I believe, what percentage is that? Sorry. It's a 14% amount of time that EMS spends going to a call and returning. Then what we did is we split that, the cost of the $500,000 we're looking at recovering through this ambulance utility. We did it at 14% split, which gave 70,000. And then we took the incident counts based on the categories that are maintained in the fire EMS system and came up with an allocation based on that percentage of the costs associated with going to calls by those different customer categories. So the rest of the time that they're in the hall, or we call that availability. And then we allocated the availability based on a residential equivalent unit. In Washington State, the average size of a single family resident is 1,985 square feet. We went through the listing of entities within the College Place that the county provided, showing what the square footage of properties are within College Place. Then we went through and we subtotaled all the ERU calculations. So that's the square footage of the building divided by 1,985 square feet to come up with one unit. So within that, the single family amounts to just under 2,500 ERUs. So that would be individual housing. Multifamily, again, can be duplexes, fourplexes, apartments. That totals 2,125 ERUs. Nursing homes are 37. Commercial units, there's 425. And the public schools, the college, and the city adds up to 282. If you recall, in the original analysis, we had the number of ERUs a lot higher because we included 100% of the building square footage at the university. I was told that we were only supposed to look at the residential type units, the dorms and the homes. So that definitely reduced that number. That 282 number dropped. Just a second while I grab my paper. There was initially 388 ERUs in that calculation, so it dropped to just over 100 ERUs based on the information from the college. How we got that information on the residential components is within the county, they list all the different types of land use, property use, and they do identify single family or residential as a different type. And we use that information from the county to extract the data on the college. So this calculation takes that amount and allocates it based on that ERU for so much per ERU and comes up with a rate. And you can see that in the total column, fourth from the right, it shows what that monthly ERU would be. So then anybody's charge would be their number of ERUs multiplied by that rate. In the prior, that number did change a little bit from the last calculation. And in the last one, the single family rate went up by 13 cents per month. The multifamily went up, I think it's almost all by the 13 cents. Yeah, pretty much across the board, but the public school number went down. It also went up because our number of ERUs went down when we subtracted out the non-living spaces at the college. So the average before was 764, it's now 780. So it, you know, according to Lauren, it wasn't a material impact on the different rates, and I'll get into the example calculations in the next screen. The second calculation was based on that average ERU count. So there's 345 ERUs. There's slight change on the nursing homes based on that ERU count, but it's 5,382, and we just came up with an average in total. So instead of splitting it between demand and availability, we just came up with an average for it all. So each category for their ERU would be charged $774. The third calculation was based on our current customer count. So currently we have 3,127 accounts. We're allocating $500,000, and you can see the monthly cost is $1332. So then everybody in this category would pay that same rate. If you get a bill, you'd pay $1332. If you get multiple bills, it's that rate times $1332. So as opposed to the first method where single families paying $684 a month, they would be paying $1332. Of course, don't forget that we're recommending doing a phased-in approach with it split a third, and a third over the next 2.5 years. So that full rate wouldn't come into effect until January 2024 in any of these scenarios. The fourth one was the most difficult to calculate. It was based on putting a cap rate of $6,000 on whoever, you know, if anybody has a charge that's over $6,000, then that's the max that they would pay is $6,000. And then you put in the an allocation method based on the remainder after that. So I use the rate number 2 methodology to allocate the balance, and you'll see in the next page how that translates into the charges. There's only, I think there was 3 customers that pay over $6,000 a year based on these scenarios. So on to the calculation, which, does anybody have any questions on that? I know it's a lot of numbers.
Nope, I don't see any, Brian.
Or you've seen it all so many times, you all know it as well as I do.
No, I don't think so.
So here's the categories 1, 2, 3, 4, as described on the last page. Option 1 being the demand availability, and you can see what the different charges for some examples of some of the customers would be in that scenario. I'll just talk basically about some of the exceptions in here, and you can see based on the demand availability, definitely the nursing homes, and those that have a lot of ERUs are going to pay more. Definitely the nursing homes will get stung because they have the highest percentage use. Upwards to, in 2021, it was 33% of the calls went to nursing homes. So they get hit by that demand charge. And then you can see the different numbers about how much individuals would be paying. You see the school districts, Walmart, and actually both of the first two scenarios, it's pretty consistent about how much is paid, except it's an average weighted. You can see in the second category, when it's average weighted, the nursing homes pay significantly less because there's no demand charge. It's just an average weighted charge. So everybody bears the blow on that one. You can see in the, for example, in the college, the amount of square footage for the university based on just dormitories and residential property is 482,000 square feet. And the last one we did, it was, just looking for my page that has that on it. Was that something like 690,000? 692,000 square feet total square footage that was used in the prior calculation. So their amount drops from, in that calculation, it drops from over 30,000 down to 21,000. And that's based just on the square footage of their residences. They have a lot of buildings for residential, upwards to 50 just homes. So it does add up. And then you can see the amount that the university would be paying. The only difference between, slight differences in the amounts based on the first two categories, but the biggest one is definitely the nursing homes pay significantly less. The third option is based on the number of utility counts. The individual rate's a lot higher, but you know, based on the number of accounts, for example, the college, they have 134 accounts. So each one of those accounts would get a charge, and that would result in, you know, $21,000 in charges to the university. And then you can see the other components there. Definitely the nursing homes, you know, get away on that one because they're only going to pay, you know, they get one bill, one or two bills. That's going to be it. The fourth option was setting that cap rate, and you can see that based on the charges that anybody over $6,000. The problem you'll find with the Village of Garrison Creek is they get 4 bills for their entire subdivision. So, but based on the logic that anybody over 6,000, that's the max, then those are, you can see the 3 or 4 accounts on here that receive that max. And then that rate per unit goes up slightly by, you know, 23 cents per ERU, it goes up. But those are the options. You asked me to research and bring back the different rates. One issue that Ree had brought up, and she might want to talk about it, is being able to not include total square footage for the university. I understand the method, but then if we do that for one entity, we may have to do that for all. The public schools could come back to us and say, well, we're not occupied 100% of the time, and we're not residential, so why would we have to pay the rate? I think we open ourselves up for a lot of issues with giving a differential rate to the university, to be honest. But that's open for discussion.
And Brian, you summarized my points well.
Brian, quick question before I go to the council members for their questions and comments. Under commercial, how come Home Depot's not under there?
Oh, good question. I just grabbed some examples.
Oh, okay.
From
Okay,
small, from a small, they'd be similar. They're in a similar size to Walmart, so their rate would be similar.
Okay, got it.
I'm guessing. I didn't look at. I don't know, for some reason I didn't bring Home Depot in there.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that it
in there next time.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that it didn't change any numbers for us.
No, it doesn't, because they're all combined, and the total number of building square foot affects, it's multiplied by the 764, so whatever square footage they have.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Jessup.
Hey, thank you guys all for working on this, obviously, as I've gathered for a long time as well. I actually have 3 questions, so I obviously tackle whichever one's easiest. My first question is maybe for a later answer is from all y'all's perspective. I know you likely have to justify all these numbers and that kind of stuff with the state and that kind of thing. So out of all these options or all these calculations, which one of these do you think is the most sustainable? You know, perhaps you guys aren't here anymore, years to come, new person comes in with the same kind of calculations, or which one is most easily sustainable, justifiable, and can easily integrate more housing or commercial businesses later on, right? Without having to do magic. The second question is, if I understand correctly, and you had mentioned earlier in your presentation that we're also paying, I think you said 14% of the time where an ambulance or utility, they're coming and going or waiting. So in terms of like buildings and so on and so forth, each of the residential homes, family entities and such, we are also paying for them waiting. So whether the building is occupied or not, if emergency happens, likely they could be called or they're waiting. So we're also paying for that 14% of wait time. And with that being said, the third question, if I may, and I think you briefly mentioned this, so forgive my ignorance. If there's a cap, how do we make up for the extra that's less than the 500,000 yearly needed? So if there's a cap on a yearly charge for some of these entities, like how do we make up for the rest of that? Like how does that work?
Okay, so the first question about ease of implementation, definitely the easiest one is number 3, the per unit rate. Every bill, so when you add a new customer, the bill gets added, you include a charge of $13.32 per month for each account. That's the simplest method. The most difficult method is definitely the high cap rate. I'll answer that question along with your third question, that to make up for that difference, you can see that increase in the monthly rate at $7.97. That's the bump that's making up for those caps. So everybody shares in that additional amount. So in the first analysis where it's demand and availability, 684 is the rate to single family. You can see in the high cap, it's gone up to 7.97. So $1, $12 a year more for every single family. And then it escalates based on, your number of ERUs, of course. But that's definitely the most difficult one to calculate because you have to do the cap and then you have to back in the dollar values and come up with a rate. So that is something that we're going to have to analyze and adjust the rate on a yearly basis. Actually, in most of these scenarios, we intend on doing a rate check every year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
There was a second question that I don't think I answered.
Yeah, you were saying that regardless of the buildings or so on and so forth, all of these numbers are also paying for the 14% that's the workers and the.
Yeah, the only
equipment and
one
stuff.
where it's broken out is option number one. Because initially when we were looking at this, there was we were asked to look at, okay, well, let's charge people who use the service.
Yeah.
And that's that first one. That's charging people that use the service for their portion of that 14%.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cleveland?
Is the staff recommendation still option 2?
I can't remember what the staff option was.
Okay. From what I understand, it was.
It's changed so many times. What our recommendation is, I don't know. It's gone through so many iterations. Any of them work. It just depends on what you want. It's my belief that number one is the proper way to do it, because it's charging people that use the service, and then charging everybody else for the the demand and availability. The only issue with that one is the problem with charging the university only on their square footage of residential type buildings. I think we'll run into options with that one. That's, really, I thought that option number 4 was kind of crazy when I started doing it. It took me a long time to figure out how to do the calculation, but once I got it, that's almost a fair in between from charging, the 1332 rate to putting a cap on people that have too much. But you could get arguments on, what if someone's paying $5,999? They don't get any adjustment. Someone, that pays $7,000 gets a $1,000 reduction technically in their bill.
I think I cut out there for a second on my internet. But I guess my only other question is, which one does Lauren like? I'll wait till we get there.
All right, before we find out which one Lauren likes, Councilmember Jessup has a question.
Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
was wondering what you just brought up is that a question? Like if does option 4 arise any kind of like equity or legal issues then in that case?
Yeah, I would have concerns about treating, like what Brian said, treating different entities differently. The other concern I would have is the city's required to calculate based on demand and based on availability. So if that's any cap only accounts for demand or availability, then technically someone could argue we didn't calculate it correctly. But I haven't crunched the numbers. This is all kind of Brian's the expert on the numbers. I think we have other governmental entities that have done a variety of this. I don't know if Brian, if we've come across anyone who caps.
No.
But so that might be problematic. But I will say the risk of challenge, if we're looking at a difference between $7.27 versus $7.97 might not be an issue that someone would challenge. It would just be the commercials, the churches, things like that who say, look, we're not here except for Sundays and we should get the same sort of treatment. So there's a risk there, but yeah, it's a policy decision, take on that risk.
Didn't you have on one of your slides, or you talked about what the other government entities are doing? I think I saw that in some of your paperwork you gave us.
Yeah, well, I thought I did too.
It's on board docs on the agenda item details.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got them right here in front of me. So Aberdeen are doing strictly by the number of accounts. Their rate was $12.88. Hoquiam, they do it based on the number of accounts. Their rate is $9.58. Mercer Island, they do an ERU calculation similar to number 1. Montesano, they do based on number of accounts, and their rate is $9.15. Moses Lake does it based on the number of accounts, and their rate is $4.42. And Pasco does it based on the number of accounts, and their rate is $3.29. And I know Walla Walla, when they were going to implement theirs, they were at like $13.60, I think, per month, and based on the number of accounts.
All right, Councilmember Peterson.
Well, thanks. Yeah, there we go. No, thanks, Brian. A lot of hard work, and we only had more options. I think we could figure this thing out, but just kidding. Hey, a couple thoughts on this. I think it's a good exercise. Realizing that Walla Walla University doesn't go down to 100,000 square feet, when it's residential. It's your point is well taken with the housing that they have away from the dormitories, and that's substantial. I'm not really too worried about the challenge. I think we could make a lot out of that, but that's we start monitoring buildings to see when they're used in the middle of the week and not just on Saturdays and Sundays, I guess. But I think I do worry. I think there's been some discussion of we do want to charge to the people that are using it. But on the other hand, we do understand also that those are sometimes the places that can't afford it. The exclusion, the thin margins and whatnot. And I am a little sensitive, I think, to the fact of other businesses looking to relocate to College Place in the future. There have been some discussions about that. And if that, I don't think this dollar amount would necessarily have an impact on them, but it's something I think to consider perhaps as far as nursing homes and whatnot. Brian, I think also there is a trying to explain this to somebody, options 1, 2, 3, it's kind of one of those things that, yeah, we do this and we do this, and then we take this and divide it by this, and then we weigh this, and then we measure this. And, that gets a little interesting, I think, for probably a lot of our friends and whatnot. But, it's interesting. I think that when the cap one, when I had heard about it, I was kind of like, I don't know, but there's some, on some of these, there's a simplicity, and at this point, I really don't have an axe to grind either way. I'm glad that we've taken a second, a third, maybe a fourth pass at some of our questions and our concerns. At this point, it's really, options 1, 2, and excuse me, where am I at here? 1, 2, and 3 are about the same, except for the impact on the nursing homes. When you look at that, and some of the schools and stuff like that. So, I'd leave it up to your judgment which one you think is easier to pass the state muster, and also the ones that when you have to explain this over and over again in the future, considerations of commercial expansion and whatnot, stuff like that. Leave it in your hands. Thank you for addressing the questions that we had and giving us the opportunity to publicly speak about this. Thank you.
Sure.
Brian, real quick, is the expectation of this discussion for us to feel comfortable about making a vote at next week's meeting?
Yes, on the 12th.
Okay, so the expectation is for us to go figure out something to move forward with. Okay. And Mr. Peterson?
I'm sorry, I was going to say one other thing. One thing we need to keep in mind, this is not an additional fee. When we expanded our ambulance service, we were looking at either doing that or the potential of getting a bill in the mail, if I understand that correctly. So, we look at the dollar impacts on our citizens, our churches, our schools. This is not, we always need to keep in mind that this is not necessarily an expanse of expenses. It's an effort to address locally this activity versus giving a reimbursement to an outside agency. So I think we need to keep that in mind.
All right, Mr. Espinosa?
Yeah, thank you for putting this together, Brian. It provides a lot of insight. I think in the spirit of being equitable and fair, I'm trying to look at the model that makes the most sense. It's equitable and, spreads it out fairly across the population. And from these models, my personal opinion is that model 1 and 3 are the ones that make the most sense. I don't think that none of these models are perfect entirely, but I do think that, from my perspective, those seem to be the most equitable and fair from my perspective.
All right, Ms. Sherman?
Thank you, Brian, for doing all this work, and Deshree or whoever else was helping with it. I think I agree with Tito. 1 and 3 are looking the most equitable. I do appreciate seeing the cap so we could see how that would go, and of course the adjustment with the square footage just for our reference. I kind of agree with Lauren too, that maybe if we had like 75 more options to consider, that would be great. But no, I think you guys have done a lot, so thank you so much.
Ms. Boyle?
So like they said, thank you guys so much. We keep asking you guys more questions and creating more difficulties, and you guys just keep coming back and answering all of our questions and creating more and more options for us. So thank you guys. So I'm really torn. I like option 3 based on it being equitable, and I like option 4 based on looking forward at it being perspective to incoming businesses. If we're trying to draw large businesses and more large pieces in, I feel like having those caps creates that incentive for them, and not that potential extra large expense. So those are kind of my two sides that I see that I fight with this. So take that as you will.
Okay, then I'm going to ask the council members, for the sake of Brian's sanity and simplicity, do we want to X out any of these options and that we don't need it to come to the next meeting, or do we want to move forward with all 4 and then make a vote on one of the 4? I wasn't on mute, right?
No, we heard you.
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
I think it'd be nice to to limit this. I don't know how far. I guess what are the guidelines? It would be nice to get this down to maybe 1 or 2. I think a horror would be that this is split. 1, 1, 1, 2, 1 or something. Then what? I think it'd be nice. I don't know how to do that in this environment right now, but Councilman Boyle, I think that great kind of echoes some of the concerns I had as far as future development of commercial and whatnot like that. But anyway, I don't know the function of how we get down to just 1 right now. If somebody smarter than me can figure that out, but I'd like to go into the next meeting with like 1 or 2 at the most.
Agree. Anybody else have an opinion on how we can, or throw out, we can get rid of number whatever and see what everybody else's thoughts are?
I would kind of go with some of Ree's recommendation and potentially throw out the one with the cap and saying that that probably isn't the most equitable.
All right. Anybody have any reason not to drop it? Councilmember Jessup?
Would it, I'm sorry, would it be possible, what do you think, Brian? It would Survey Monkey of the council member? No, we can't do that, can we? Never mind. Bad idea. Yeah, anyway.
Can't you?
Well, Lisa, no, we can't. She's immediately saying no.
All right.
No decisions outside the public.
Okay, I think I heard her even on mute. Councilmember Jessup?
If I understood this correctly, I don't believe I heard anybody mention as 2 being something that people are generally wanting. And I guess leaving it up to you all as the experts, Councilmember Sherman mentioned 4 because of Reed's concerns. My question would be just to what extent are the concerns or the extent of the risk, or the risk and concerns of high enough to say, that's an easy swipe?
I can't speak to that.
Whomever can, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I guess I would view it, my experience, and Brian can back this up, that, we're not talking about a lot of money for a Walmart or a Home Depot. So I don't, and I would anticipate that if someone's coming in to locate in our community, we would have similar rates for businesses as other communities. I think it's a pretty low risk that we get challenged on a decision, but it's there. And I think the bigger question is fairness to users than risk of getting a challenge. Yeah, so there, I will say there's not been a challenge that's made it to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court with the decision. So my best advice would be to not make an arbitrary decision because it looks good or sounds good, but the thoughtful reasons for picking one option over the other. But I would say risk of litigation
if I
is
can
low.
just add a little bit there. Definitely a majority of the cities in the state that have an ambulance utility are based on number 3. And Walla Walla was doing that as well. And I haven't talked to anybody at Walla Walla, but they might have had different options at one point, but they brought for recommendation was number 3. It's the easiest and the simplest one to implement, definitely.
Ms. Nisel?
I just wanted to note that I appreciate the narrowing down, but let's not make any go ahead and wipe a couple of them out, but let's not narrow it down to your final one at a workshop, please.
All right, folks, we have our marching orders.
So I know in a school system, we can do heads up 7 but that's okay. But am I correct? It's still public. We can see it, right?
You're still in a public, but this meeting was advertised that there's no final action. So
no, I'm teasing. No, I understand. So I'm sorry if I may. I don't mean to. But was I correct in that not a whole lot of people were on 2 as a? That still leaves 3 options, and I think if that still makes you feel comfortable.
Councilmember Cleveland?
I hope I don't bother Lisa, but I think I lean towards option 3.
Okay, so let's see, going with Mr. Jessup's question, can we drop option 2? Is everybody comfortable with dropping option 2? Thumbs up or? All right. Okay, Brian, we're dropping option 2.
Okay.
I think, well, I'm gonna let you guys make a decision. So we're down to 1, 3, 4. I heard most people say 1 and 3, but I think I also heard 1 and 4 equally. So thoughts?
Two is, or 4 is based off of 2. If we're dropping 2, dropping 4 seems like a logical thing to do.
Yeah, a similar basis in that, but it has a cap on it.
Mhm.
But you're right.
So really 1 and 3 would be nice. One, you've got the square footage thing, the usage thing, everything mixed in there. The other one, third, is basically just flat out straight accounts. As Brian pointed out, a majority of cities are going towards. So you kind of have your full mixture with 1 and 3, don't you?
I agree. So I'm going to call it. Is everybody comfortable with moving forward 1 and 3? Okay, it looks like it.
Okay.
All right, so there you go, Brian. 1 and 3 to our next meeting, please.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes.
It's still light out. I'm a little surprised.
Oh, this you would say that.
Hey, it could be Wednesday by now.
Well, and I just have to tell you, Brian had to explain everything to me like 18 times, and I don't know if I still got it, but
There's my folder with all the.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was thinking that Brian probably said, I'm not going on vacation again, because when I did, they threw another one at me.
Yeah. A palace coup.
Job security, Brian, job security.
No more vacation? Is that what you said?
Yeah, there you go. Because we'll just keep throwing things at you.
It's okay. I can take it.
All right, so we're coming to the end of our actual agenda items. Is there any other business for good of the order?
You know, the street lights are beautiful going down 4th Street.
Yes.
You know, that is just, for a while there, I thought I was on the Champs-Élysées. So I don't know. It was.
Yeah, those lights turned out nice. We're waiting on Pacific Power to turn them on, so I'm anxious to get them turned on.
Fantastic, guys.
Yeah, they look great. Any other comments, questions? All right, I don't see any. So if there's no further discussion, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Councilmember Cleveland.
Do we have a second?
Second, Peterson.
All right, first and second. So if there's no objections, the meeting is adjourned at 7:02 p.m. Have a good evening. Thanks, everyone.